So you like a girl, she's rejected you, she said no to you, but you still want to potentially win her over. Okay, that's possible. It really is. There are a few things that you want to keep in mind about that. So one is that the reason she rejected you might be less personal than you think. There could be any number of reasons. She might have just gotten out of a relationship. She might be going through something difficult in her life. Some family member might be in the hospital. She might really not find you that attractive. She might be focused on other things. There's a lot of other things and reasons that can go into a rejection. So keep that in mind, that there's a much larger world here than just your desire to see her, and realize that that rejection might be personal and it might not. That said, when a woman is attracted to a man enough, she's not going to reject him. You know, Brad Pitt walks into the room and asks a woman out. Suddenly that family member in the hospital, you know, or whatever else is going on in her life, suddenly Brad Pitt might be able to override the importance and the weight of that, and she might be saying yes to him asking her out. It's entirely possible. Just forgive me for saying Brad Pitt. You know, I grew up with him as the most attractive male actor. I'm 45. I'm sure there are other younger, more attractive male actors, but for me, Brad Pitt is still where it's at as far as charisma and physical attractiveness. Getting back to the point of the right guy coming in, what this is when a woman has enough attraction for you, she's going to make it easier for you. She's going to say yes. She's going to help you see her. If she's rejecting you, that means that the attraction level is on the lower end. And you have to ask yourself, how much effort as a man do you really want to invest and put into a woman that's not that attracted to you to begin with? Now, a woman being attracted to you doesn't mean that she's throwing herself at you and that you want to have sex on the first date. That doesn't mean that. But it does mean that she's going to open the door to you asking her out. So you have to ask yourself, how much do I really want to do an uphill battle in trying to get this woman to say yes to me? How much of my time and attention and energy and money do I really want to put out trying to get this one woman to say yes to me eventually, where I could very much use all of those resources to improve my own attractiveness in a general sense, to enlarge the pool of women that are going to say yes to me when I ask them out. And I also spend my resources going out and meeting more women. You have to ask yourself, do you really want to spend your resources fighting an uphill battle with a woman? Or do you want to let that one go and look for a woman that's already more of a natural fit because she's already showing more signs of interest and attraction towards you? Okay, so let's say though you definitely want to pursue it anyway. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing. You being laser focused and dialed in, and this is your one. Back in the old days, they used to call this one-itis. So you have this condition where you are, this is the one, and I have to have this one, and she's the one. Okay, that's not a good mindset to be in at all as a guy. You're completely dependent when you're in that state. You're completely attached when you're in that state. You're completely leaning and needing her to fulfill something because she is the only one. Guys, she's not the only one. Idea that she's the only one is because you have tunnel vision and you have this one-itis. Let that go, man. She's not the only one. And if you can manage to let that go and spend your resources meeting other women and dating them, you can keep her in the mix. There have been situations in the past where I have, let's see if I can remember the story. So I've met a woman, she was single at an event, but she told me no, she wasn't interested. And I thought, okay, interesting, because I was getting the vibe that she was into me. But I let it go. I think I got her phone number and I texted her just, hey, and she turned me down. It was fine. It turns out that I saw her at the same event, I don't know, a month or two later. And she walked right up to me and was super friendly. And she told me, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And she appreciated the fact that I didn't push the issue. And at that event, she told me that technically she was single, but she still was working through feelings for this guy that was still kind of in her life in like a long distance situation. And I thought, okay, that's fine. And I said, thanks for telling me. Thanks for letting me know where it is. 3 or 4 months later, we were going to have a drink or something, after that event. Never happened. 3 or 4 months later, I reached out and I just said, hey, I was at that event again. You weren't there. Made me think of you. Just curious how you're doing. Yeah, that weekend we went out and had a date because she had gotten to a better place and she was feeling more comfortable. And what I'm trying to point out in this little story is that men and women experience time very differently. Men are very much about it's going to happen right now. She said yes, she said no right now. Women are much more in a longer time frame than men are. And when you realize that as a guy and you're like, okay, not right now, not yet, maybe later. And you can play with that. I have had some women that, I asked out once. A year later, they're reaching out to me on Facebook because something changed in their life. Something shifted. Now, if I had been dialed in and had that one-itis and I had tunnel vision on them that entire time, probably would have never happened. But if I realized that the truth is I'm dating in a much larger pool in which I meet women, sometimes we go on a date, sometimes we don't. People pass in and out of my life without attachment, without neediness. When I allow that to happen, well, you'd be surprised sometimes how things can shift and change over time when you just sort of let it happen. And that's very hard for a guy. Guys, we're active, we're engaging, we're trying to make it happen. Letting something happen, that's not really the most natural place for us to be. So the main advice is if a woman is not interested, move on. Go find a woman that is interested. That is the most efficient use of your resources. Absolutely. But there's no reason that you can't necessarily follow up on like a cold lead, to use a sales term. There's no reason that you can't follow up 3 months later, 6 months later, and just sort of see where things are. But don't treat it like something is going to happen. If you do that, you're going to, it's funny, when you focus in like that, you're almost holding her in the same mindset that she's in when she first rejected you. You're going to keep her there. You almost have to back off and let her change and experience in more of an organic way in the environment. And if you check in 2 or 3 months later, kind of like I said, hey, I went to this event, I went to this place, it made me think of you, just wondered how you're doing, what's new in life. Again, I'm not asking her out, but 2 text messages later, we were having drinks because things had changed. But the fact that I had released, taken my hands off, let her swim around in the dating pool, and then came back and just said, hey, just curious where you are. Well, that allowed her to shift into a new place. That allowed her to shift out of it. If I had held her dialed in and was like, well, can we go out this week? Can we go out this week? And or even if I was like, well, I want to be your friend and I become her new best friend, I have fixed in the relationship and the focus. She doesn't really have much of an opportunity to redefine her relationship with me. Some guys might say this is saying like, oh, I don't care, or you need to treat her like any other girl. It's like, yeah, sort of. You're sort of treating it like it doesn't matter to you. But the way I look at it authentically is I was attracted to this woman for whatever reason. Now isn't the time. Either she wasn't attracted to me or many other reasons. Well, I just said, okay, that's the honest truth of it. I'm going to back off and I'm going to go swimming, take some more laps in the pool. And then if it occurs to me, if there's a natural, normal way for me to just ping her and see where she is, then I do that. That's not treating her with disrespect. That's not treating her as a woman that I'm not interested in. That's actually treating me as more of a high value man that is not going to sit and wait and hope someone changes. So anyway, those are a few things you can do when you get rejection and you actually want to pursue it again. There isn't a magic formula that you can just say that will suddenly change your mind. I'm sorry, hypnosis in the dating world is not something I personally believe in. But these are a few things that I've done that have worked very, very well for me. All right, guys, if you have more questions, drop them in the comments and I'll catch you next time. All right, bye.